know it's been a while, so sorry about that. But I have still been reading. So, with that, I wanted to come in and talk to you guys about my mid year freakout tag. So, this is going to be the first time I've done one of these. Um, and I'm really excited. So, let's get into it. So, my first question is best books of 2025 so far. So, I have a few on the list, okay? Let me get everything for you and we'll talk about it. Let's get into it. Best book so far of 2025. Okay, so I have a few options, of course. One of my favorites for nonfiction, or I guess it would be my favorite for nonfiction of 2025, is Brian Stevenson's book, Just Mercy. This is amazing. If you haven't read this, you absolutely have to pick this up. Brian is an amazing person. Essentially, this is his story and it goes from when he was in college, when he was young, and well, I think he was actually in law school, and he was studying to actually become a lawyer, and basically he was seeing what all his friends were doing, going into corporate law and all these things, and he kind of like decides he wants to do something for the greater good. He wants to do something different than what they were doing. And so essentially, this path leads him to Montgomery, Alabama, where he realizes that there are a lot of people from underrepresented communities being completely exploited in this system, and they don't even have representation literally from lawyers in their community. So he essentially goes on this path to start his nonprofit called the Equal Justice Initiative. And essentially, his nonprofit just does that. It helps people who are underrepresented and need representation. This also has a lot to do with the death penalty because in a lot of those cases they were facing the death penalty and he comes in and helps them. So it's just a really beautiful story. It's actually being made into a movie now too, but I definitely think you have to read this book. I actually was blessed enough to have him come and speak at my job. It was amazing. I actually work from home, but when I heard that he was going to be the guest speaker for Black History Month, I knew I had to be there. There was no way I could miss that. So yeah, he was amazing in person, speaking as he was in his writing. Like you could totally tell that this is his life's goal, his life's mission. And he's literally the best person I've probably ever been in the same room as. Like he has a heart of gold. And you can see that through here. I cried so hard and I rooted so hard for his team and his nonprofit that he was building. And I mean, it's really great work that he's doing here. And he's continuing to do this too. Like I said, I was able to actually hear from him in real life talking about what they're doing now with the Equal Justice Initiative. And essentially, he's just furthering his work and furthering the education around these issues, around post slavery issues in America, as far as just like the racial bias in the South. And when you really are boots on the ground part of that community, the way that he is, you really understand, his mission and his values and who he is as a person, which was really touching to see. Like, there were so many stories in here where you're like, there's no way like I couldn't have been that good in that situation. I couldn't have been that strong in that situation, but Brian really is. And he really built a whole team and a whole organization, a whole nonprofit around that, which is just absolutely amazing. So you have to pick this one up. I'll be ranting and raving about this forever. This is my probably my favorite nonfiction I've read of all time, if I'm being honest. This should be required reading at this point. So yes, Just Mercy, absolutely one of my favorites of 2025 so far. And now moving into fiction and also just like a contemporary romance favorite, I read Happy Place this year so far. And as you can see, I tabbed it up. This was my very first time annotating too. So I'm not even sure that I even did it right. I was just slapping tabs and like highlighting my favorite parts, but I loved this book. Like, I loved this book. I have liked Emily Henry books before, but this goes way above and beyond even those other ones that I've liked. Like, I think Book Lovers would probably be my second favorite now that I've read this one. I used to love it, it was my favorite, but Happy Place really hit for me. And like I know that some people, some of the critiques I've heard on it, some people aren't as into second chance romance and that kind of trope. But I think I'm learning about myself for me. I really love that longing and that sense of like really knowing a person and really having a chance to have had the time to love them. And I think with second chance romance, if it's done right and if it's done well, you really get more of a chance to see that because in this book, Win and Harriet, they're the main couple. They're two people, two young people who were part of this big friend group, and you get to see that in here. You get to see their friend dynamics. They're part of this big friend group that met in college, and essentially, they eventually, after a while, started dating. Like they were always attracted to each other. They start dating, and they didn't really want to break up the group dynamics, but when they did, everybody was really understanding of them beginning to date. So people are supportive, and then eventually, years and years down the line, basically they split up. So when this couple splits up, they still have this tradition with their group, their friend group, to go to their happy place, which is actually a lakeside house, a lake house area, and they basically have to go back to this group trip and pretend like nothing happened because when they split up, they didn't tell anybody. So it's kind of, it is obviously second chance. It's kind of fake dating, but within that, you really get to see not only the group dynamic, but also this couple's dynamic while they're trying to navigate basically this breakup. And you could tell that there's still so much love there and so much longing. And I think that's what really gets me. Even though it's a second chance romance, I couldn't help but love it because of just like you could tell how deep the love went with these two and they had so many years to build on that. And I just think for me, the language obviously that Emily Henry uses, I think if you've read Emily Henry, you kind of understand how she is and how good her writing is. And the language that she uses for these situations and the longing, I just think that she perfectly captures that vibe. And, you know, as like a hopeless romantic, I absolutely ate that up. So yeah, this book is amazing. It shows, like I said, the group dynamic. So obviously, all the side characters are shown really well in here. And I absolutely loved that. I just think that they were each so fun, and each of these characters, you could understand where they were coming from, and I feel like they were fully developed. Like there was some tension within the main plot, and within each of the characters, kind of had their own issues with each other because they're such longtime friends. But it felt real. It didn't feel like it was just made up in the moment for the sake of drama. Like it felt like these are real things that these people could be dealing with. And I've also heard people kind of saying they leaned towards miscommunication on that. And it's like, I understand not liking miscommunication trope. I kind of don't either. But I also think that in life, miscommunication is a real thing. You know, especially in friend groups and in big friend groups, it's very easy for someone to take something that someone did or said the wrong way and it be miscommunicated, you know? So I do think that while that is a valid critique, it did not stop me from enjoying this book. I think all of it seemed very real and very valid. I absolutely loved it and I ate it up. This is one of my new favorites from Emily Henry. So there's that one. And then next on my list for my favorite fantasy, or I guess romantasy, and this is actually a YA romantasy read, Our Infinite Fates. This book, y'all, this book was so good. I was loving it. First of all, look at this cover. I don't know, the light in here is not great, but it's kind of catching the foil. Love these colors and the shine on that foil. Absolutely killed it. But yeah, so this book was amazing. Okay. It's about a young girl who before her 18th birthday, every time before her 18th birthday, someone comes and kills her. And it's literally before she turns 18, so she gets reborn every time, and it could be a different gender, different, race, different anything. She gets reborn. She never knows who she's going to turn into or who she's going to be. And then likewise, she never knows who the person who is coming to kill her is going to turn into and is going to be. So she can't even really like look out for that. And she doesn't know why this is happening. So throughout the whole book, she's like, who is this person? Why is this happening to me? Why can I not just live my life? And as frustrating as that is, it's even compounded in the current life. So it's kind of, this book is told in a way where, like, her current life that she's on now is one chapter, and then it'll be a chapter of a flashback to what happened in a past life, which is really fun because it goes through history and it goes through time, and she could have been born at, that's another thing, any race, any gender, any time. So you see so many snapshots of like these lives that she's lived and experiences that she's gained, which is just such a fun way to tell a story, even without the romance aspect of it. But then you kind of have this enemies slash lovers situation because, okay, this person is killing her in every life, but it's also the person who she has this like draw towards. Like she can tell kind of when somebody might be that person because she has this undeniable draw towards them. And that's just the kind of stuff that I just eat up, man. That's the kind of romance vibe that I'm just like, ah, like this person is killing you, but you love them, or you have this affinity towards them. And that's kind of what this is. And also, the person who keeps doing this to her is a poet and has written this poetry about her, and it keeps coming back. So, like I was saying, with the complication in her current life, she has someone who needs her essentially. She has a sister who needs her for medical reasons, and she's about to basically donate, I think it's maybe bone marrow or something. I can't really remember. She's about to donate something that she's compatible for her sister. So she really needs to not be killed until that's done. But it's being pushed back to where it might be after her 18th birthday. So she's trying to basically find the person who keeps doing this to her in this life and tell them, oh, you can't kill me yet. Someone needs me. Like she really wants to help her sister. So we get attached to those characters in this story. We get attached to the characters in her current life. And then sometimes even, pretty fleshed out characters in her other lives, even though we're just seeing snapshots of like the past. But I just think that this was so well written. And I don't know if it was because it was YA and we were like not able to lean on, the sexual parts of some of the adult romances. Like there was no smut, there was nothing like that. Well, I mean, towards the end, there was like some light love scenes, but it wasn't anything, adult rated. And I think that sometimes in those adult books, it's hard to get the yearning and the longing. But this one was like an entire book or even entire lives worth of longing that they've had, just trying to be able to be together, but they absolutely can't because this thing that they can't figure out or that she can't figure out, and that's keeping them apart. So I just think that this was very well done. It was beautifully written. And I don't know if this was, I don't think this was her, Laura Stevens' first book. I looked into it and I think she has some past books as well. But this is the first one I've read of hers and I loved it. So if she could keep this coming, I will keep reading it and I will keep eating it up. Absolutely loved this one and will not stop talking about it, so don't worry. All right, next question, best sequel. So I have a couple for this. The first one that I read, best sequel, Rebel Witch. So I loved this duology. This was so well done. And I know people were raving about it on Book Talk and TikTok and everything this year. So when I read Heartless Hunter, which is the first one to this duology, I was so excited. I was eating it up, and I read it before Rebel Witch was out, but I knew that it was going to be out soon, so I wouldn't have to wait long or anything. I was so excited. The way that Heartless Hunter ends is just, it's on this cliffhanger where you just know that what comes next is going to be so good. Like, it's just set up for something amazing. And essentially, the whole thing in these books is our main girl, Rune, is a witch, and then our main guy, Gideon, is a witch hunter. So you already know that it's going to be enemies to lovers, like this whole spark with them. So great setup there, and I just think the world is so interesting too with how the witch magic works. So the magic system amazing, and for it to just be a duology, to be able to tell such a good love story and to build a world, I always think that's amazing when you can build a world completely and tell the entire story that needs to be told within 2 books. And I think that this did that really well. I will say it was good, but I do think some things were fumbled in this book. Although it is one of my favorite sequels that I've read this year, it's not a perfect book in my opinion. I think that technically Heartless Hunter was a little bit better because, like I said, it set it up so well at the end there. And then my favorite thing about it was because they were at this cliffhanger and at this impasse as far as like politically within the world of witch hunters and witches, you kind of got to a point where you were like, okay, we still don't know if they're going to be together, because whenever I feel like for me, when a main couple gets together in something that's a romantasy or even just like a contemporary romance, I almost don't even care about that couple anymore after they're together. And I don't know if that's just me or if that's like a normal thing. But yeah, I almost stop the investment once there's no like, what are we going to do? Will they, won't they get together? So, with that being said, that not being an issue in this one, and us still wondering, will they be together in this next book? And even throughout the beginning of this, like, you're wondering, when will they meet back up? What's going to happen? What is the tension going to be like after that huge explosive ending scene from the last book? But it was a little bit of a letdown as far as the fantasy side goes. I feel like this one was almost fan service towards the main couple, and it's a little bit more tropey than I would have liked. Like, yes, we all love a one bed trope. Yes, we all love forced proximity, but the fantasy and the world building that this one set up, I really thought that there was going to be much more strife and, like, things that they were going to have to overcome as a couple, literally because of the political world and this battle and this, thing that's going on between the witch hunters and the witches. And it just seemed like the entire plot formed around the romance, which I get in romantasy. Sometimes it leans more towards the romance than the fantasy. Sometimes it's more of a fantasy with a romance subplot. Um, but I just think this could have been a little bit stronger on the fantasy side, which is a little bit disappointing. However, yes, I still love the romance between Rune and Gideon. I couldn't think of his name. But yeah, the romance between Rune and Gideon was cute, but the fantasy side just fell a little bit flatter than what I was expecting because my expectations were so high. So, yes, it's still one of my favorites, but could have been better. Not a perfect book. But moving on to my second one, and it's Enchantra. I'm loving these covers, by the way. I think that Phantasma and Enchantra, absolutely loved these covers. So pretty. So, with Enchantra, I really loved this book. I actually, if we're comparing the two, I liked our main girl in Phantasma, but Enchantra is basically her sister, the main girl from Phantasma's sister. And I I loved it even more because you could tell in the first one that the sister was like the sassy one and she was funny and she had the snippy comebacks. So I really wanted to see even more of her in that book. And then when I looked and found out that this book was going to be about her, I was like, girl, yes. So this book basically is about our main girl who goes and she was part of Phantasma. So basically, these two sisters ended up in this magical game in Phantasma. And then, the sister who is the main girl in this one won. And then the main girl in this one, she basically is just like, okay, well, now she has her man and I am looking for my own life. I'm just going to go travel because that's like one of her main things is that she wanted to go travel. So while she's in Europe, she kind of stumbles upon something that was like their mother who passed away in the last book. It's like her old pen pal or her old friend or something. So she kind of like, she's a little bit sneaky. She goes and like tries to find out more information from him about their mother and about things that had happened that their mom just really didn't tell them too much about. And so we kind of like see her go on that journey, but she stumbles into a magic game of her own, essentially. So, like, this family that was one of her mom's best friends has basically this big family, and they're like a magical family as well. And I think that so her sister is a necromancer. So her sister has that going on, but also they find out that they have another magic ability. So that sister has necromancer and the other magical ability. Try not to do too many spoilers here. And she just has the one magical ability because it happens to be from their father that they got the other magic ability. So she has just this one, and then she gets thrust into her own magic game. And it's basically like this game of hide and seek with these siblings. There's like seven so siblings, and basically one of them is the one that she runs into first. And obviously he's really hot. He's got this like gothic like lip ring thing going on, and so she runs into him first and she's just like, hey, I have this invitation here and there's this correspondence. And she basically just fakes like she's her mom and that she was the one who got the invitation and the correspondence. And he's like, no, you can't be here, and tries to throw her out. And she obviously doesn't listen. So she ends up getting roped into this game because she wouldn't leave the grounds. And they have to do this whole fake, not even fake dating. They basically had to have like a marriage of convenience, fake marriage situation here. So we've got those fun tropes. So it's basically just them trying to get through this magic game and a fake marriage of convenience. It's literally so much fun. I would say though that this duology is one of those. When I put out my rating, I think I literally said that it was one that I liked, but I don't think it was like groundbreaking. I don't really think that this duology is doing anything new, but it's so fun. And the way that Kylie Smith tells this story, she's just so fun with it. Her banter is great, and the sexy scenes hit. I just think that the smut was smutting, the banter was bantering, and it was a silly good time. I read both of these pretty quickly because I was just so into it. So again, I don't think that they're doing anything really new, but I would say this one's even my favorite. So if you were going to read just one of them, you could read just this one as a standalone or just Phantasma as a standalone, but they're basically just, interconnected standalones in a duology. And this is really, really fun and really cute. So I would suggest this one. This is my second favorite duology of this year. All right, so moving on to the next question. And I think we are losing light, so I apologize for that, but we're going to do what we can with it right now. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot on sequels. I don't have it physically here. This is why I almost forgot. But Onyx Storm. So that book I loved. I did give that a 5 star, and it was absolutely such a fun time. I think like in longer series like that, whenever you are already on the third book, you're already so invested in what's going on and in the characters. And I think Rebecca Yarros did an amazing job once again in keeping me invested. And I will say she threw in a couple things in the world where I was like, was this political part of it and I just missed it, and it had been a while since I read the book, so I was like, did that go over my head? Did I miss that? But I was talking to a friend who was reading it at the same time, and he was like, no, I didn't know about that either. So I was glad to have like a buddy read during that because I was so confused at one point. But I think overall she took the cliffhanger from that last book and just kind of like made us wonder throughout the whole thing, like what is going on, what are we gonna do about it? And then at the end there's like this battle scene and a big cliffhanger yet again at the end of that one. So I loved it. I think the way that we fleshed out the world, even some of the religion, some of the relationship stuff, as far as even just the friendships, I think with this one, Riddock and Violet, like their friendship was really, really cute in this. And I got even more invested in his character. He's probably one of my favorites. And then someone came out of nowhere that I'll actually discuss in one of the questions later on that I was like, oh my gosh, that character is so cool. So I think just the way that she's fleshing out the characters, it was never a dull moment, in my opinion. Even getting some of Zayden's background with his mom, we never knew anything really. I mean, you knew like the bare bones of their situation, but you didn't know too much about that. So I think she really fleshes out a lot of that. So I was excited to see that. I thought it was a great book. I thought it was well earned. I've heard a lot of critiques, even like a bunch of YouTubers that I love, booktubers that I love to watch. They had some pretty negative opinions of it, and I understand. I get it. But from a romanticy girl standpoint, from likes to have a good time and high vibes equals high ratings standpoint, I loved it. And I suggest it if you are into even the first book. I think that continuing on with this series is well worth it, in my opinion. I can't wait to see what she does next. So, yeah, that was Onyx Storm. That was another great sequel this year so far. So, now moving on. Okay, so new release that you haven't read yet but want to. So, my new release that I haven't read yet but want to is One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. I am so excited about this because this is actually a continuation of the story from, I think it's Every Summer After, which I really loved. I actually loved all the ones that I've read by her so far. I also have Meet Me at the Lake, which I thought was super cute. But yeah, so basically it's the other brother from Every Summer After. Essentially, this is his story. I don't know too much about it. I think it's just like another summer fun book. So this is one of my highly anticipated reads. My mom actually bought this for me when I was visiting her in Oklahoma. So I'm really excited to get to it. And I think this cover is stunning, as hers always are. Hers aren't always like the cartoony ones. Like this actually looks gorgeous. Like, look at this. Meet me at the lake. Oh, I forgot. I actually have This Summer Will Be Different as well. Look at how pretty that is. Like, are you kidding me? Just messing up all my shelves right now. Just messing it up. But anyways, yeah, super excited to get to this one this summer. I think this will be probably one of my next reads coming up. Maybe like poolside. I could see it happening, the vibes. So I'm excited to get to that. Okay, so next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So, my most anticipated release for the second half of the year is going to be Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston? I always forget. It's Poston, right? So, yeah, Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston because I have really been into her books so far. I think definitely my favorite is The 7 Year Slip. I thought that that was just like such an interesting way to tell a story. I just think that her writing style is really fun. I think that there's a lot of quirky people, characters, and I love magical realism, so I can't wait to see what she does with this one. Actually, you know what? I don't even know too much about it. She's an auto-buy author for me, so I just want to see what she's got going on next. I love the cover. It looks really cute and the musical vibes. So I'm here for it. I can't wait to read this next book by Ashley. All right, next question. This one, y'all, this one got me. So, the next question, biggest disappointment. So, I hate to be negative, but the very first book that I read this year in 2025 was actually one of my biggest disappointments. And it is The Ministry of Time. Who's it by? It is The Ministry of Time by Kate Kalaine Bradley. I don't know how to say that. Kalaine Bradley. But yes, I really was not into this. And my take on this is that I think it was a little bit too slow for me. It was a little bit too slice of life for me. And I think that it also tried to do too many things, in my opinion. Basically, the premise of it is that we have this agent, and she is basically like drafted to be part of the Ministry of Time, and it's like this new thing. And she already worked for the government, but now she's like going into working for the Ministry of Time. And it's a really top secret thing, so even a lot of things she doesn't know. And basically, she's assigned to an expat who she is supposed to like look after. And essentially, these are people we find out who have been like plucked from different times. And she has to like look after him and just make sure he's adjusting to this timeline. And she has a lot of questions throughout it. She doesn't really know why this is happening. She doesn't know how this is happening. And she's never really given that information throughout most of the book. And she's just kind of coping with that. So when I say that this is too slice of life for me, it literally is just going through their everyday. Oh, wow, it's raining. Oh, it's so pretty out. It's raining. Ah, perfect reading weather, actually. Sorry about that. That's why the lighting in here is weird. But anyways, so she's like trying to help him adjust, and she gets this guy who is from like an expedition, and basically like an early explorer guy. He was on like a ship in the Arctic or something. And this is really a real guy that I can't remember his name or whatever, but it's really a real guy from history that basically she has to watch over him and everything and just make sure he's adjusting. So when I say that it's slice of life, it was literally taking like its sweet time telling us. It was like, okay, this day I was feeling this way, and I could tell that he was not really, adjusting, but he was keeping good spirits. And then, it was literally just like boom, boom, boom. And then the next day we were sad. And then the next day this thing happened to me and I wasn't adjusting well, but he was really trying. I just couldn't get into it because of that. I just thought, like, where is the plot? Where are we going with this? Why does our main character not have more questions? Why is she not asking the right questions? I think I just got so frustrated with her, and I was like, why is this her main focus? Why does she not want to know more? And I just think that I didn't relate to her. I couldn't get into her head. So that was one of my main gripes about it. And then one of my next things that I really didn't like was I just, like I said, thought that it was trying to do too many things. So, yes, we have basically like the historical fiction part of it, where, yes, this guy was actually part of history in real life. So, we're taking his life, making a fiction out of it as far as like this time grabbing, time travel thing. Um, Basically, they saved him from death on this expedition. Okay, so historical fiction. And then we have the romance piece, which is like, okay, she's kind of falling for this guy, and that part was pretty cute for me. I did kind of buy into it, but again, it drug its feet for me, and so I couldn't really see what these people were doing, why did they like each other, you know, it was just not enough for me on the romance part. And then lastly, it was kind of a mystery because we don't know what's going on. So it was like mystery, historical fiction, and romance. And all of it was undercooked for me. I think, like, if you would have picked maybe one or two of those things for it to be, or to focus most on, even if it was a little slice of each, but if it got less page count, maybe for the slice of life romance, and we put more towards the mystery and finding that out. Like I said, I think she should have asked more questions. She should have been more curious. I like a main female character who is really about her business and really trying to get things done. And I think there were so many times where she lost the plot of her job, where literally she was like getting distracted and being into this guy that took away from what she was actually supposed to be doing. And I just thought that it didn't give the competent woman female character that I like to see. And so, like I said, it was trying to do too many things, all of them undercooked in my opinion. And I can't remember exactly the rating I gave it. It might have been a 3 star, but it was undercooked for me. Um, so yeah, I that was my biggest disappointment, definitely by far. And it actually, like I said, was the first book to set the tone for this year. But I do think we've come back from that. I will say, I do think that I've gotten a lot of other good options, as you've already seen this year. So I'm glad for that. On to the next question. Okay, for the next question, I have biggest surprise. And I actually have three on here because this was too good for me. Oh, one second. I forgot the other book over here. Okay, I'm back. So one of them, I'll just start out with this one I just went to go get. White Nights was adorable. I wouldn't have thought. I think this is my first classic to read just as an adult. I thought it was so cute. It's essentially about this young man who you can tell right off the bat he's kind of lonely. So the themes in here are like loneliness and just being kind of self isolated and kind of watching the world go by around you without fully engaging and interacting. So it kind of tells his story where right from the beginning you can kind of see that he is isolated, but in his head he's like, oh, well, it's okay because I see this guy every day on the train and we acknowledge each other, and I'm part of this city in this way because every day I know he would miss me if he didn't see me, and things like that. So he's kind of navigating his life and kind of in denial almost maybe of his actual loneliness. And then you kind of see him meet someone and you kind of see their story, and it's super cute. Like, this is also really short, by the way. This is a tiny book. So you kind of like see their story unfold where he's really trying to be a friend to her. Well, she really needs a friend at this time. And it's kind of just this heartfelt story. Um, Honestly, I cried in it, even though it's this tiny. My little romantic heart, and just the way that I fell for this character. He's so relatable, and the story is so relatable. These themes are so relatable. I think all of us at some point in time have been kind of a bystander. Maybe you're out, you're people watching, and you can tell that you're not engaging with the world. You're just kind of like watching as a spectator. And I think that this main character is kind of lost in that cycle. And maybe we've all had a time in our lives where that's been maybe a time, a chapter for us or something like that. And I think that that's kind of where we meet this character. And you just get that snapshot of his life where he's meeting someone and he's going through these things and trying to engage in an actual friendship relationship with somebody. And like after on the heels of loneliness. And I just think that it's so beautiful, and the way that the author is able to do it, it makes so much sense why this is a classic. So This was a big surprise for me because I didn't know if I was going to really vibe with the classic. Obviously, this was written so many years ago and it's still relevant today. So definitely go read this. Even if you're in a reading slump, I think switching up your usual reads, something like this, if that's not what you usually read, would be really good and really fun. I think that you could probably relate to it, or a lot of people could. So I would say if you can get your hands on this, certainly go out and get that. Um, and then the next biggest surprise is actually a funnier one. I read Ice Planet Barbarians, and who's that by? That is by Ruby Dixon. Ice Planet Barbarians. So it is definitely just like a smutty, fun time. It's essentially this girl gets abducted by aliens, and it starts off kind of rough. Her and all these other girls are being held by these aliens, and they're being, well, when they come to, they're like confused and screaming and told not to scream. You don't want to know what happens if you scream and stuff like that. And so it's very terrifying in the beginning for these characters. But they end up getting dropped on this planet and just like abandoned by the aliens that were abducting them. And they have to kind of like go about finding their way on this other planet. And I just think the setting here and the way that the world was done, even though it's just a silly good time, was really fun. Our main character was really fun and really funny, so I had a great time with that. I I just loved how she kind of took initiative. Like I was saying earlier, I like a female character that takes initiative and asks questions and tries to see what she can do in her situation to kind of better it in any way. And she really did that. And through all of that, through being brave and going out and doing that, she found herself a hunky alien man. And so who can be mad at that, right? You know? I thought it was, like I said, a silly, fun time. It was smutty. I was here for it. It was fun. So I would continue that series. I haven't yet. I know that there are like so many books in that series. And this one was short. I also did it on audio. I also did it while I was traveling. So that was kind of awkward. I was literally on a plane with alien smut in my ear, just like looking around, but it's fine. I'm pretty sure it's way more common than we all realize at this point. So I had fun with it. I thought that was a great book. So that was one of my surprises. And then lastly, a surprise that was not a good surprise. Kind of sad for me. This beautiful book right here, Deep End by Ali Hazelwood, and also this beautiful author right here. I love her books. I really do love every Ali Hazelwood book I've read so far until I got to this one. And I will say this is just a DNF, so I can't give it like a rating. I can't give it a definitive yes or no. This is a not for me right now book, and that was one of my biggest surprises is that I DNF'd it. I thought that I was going to love it, and truly, like, I'm not put off by smut. I'm not put off by the fact that this is supposed to be a kinky book. I'm I have nothing against any of that. I just literally think that I got I don't even know, I got to, I think, 20% or something like that, maybe 30. And I didn't even really vibe with the characters. I didn't even know what their motivations are other than being a swimmer. So basically, it's about this girl who's a diver and she's trying to get over this old injury that she had had. She isn't injured anymore, but she has a mental block. And basically, the main guy, who is the swimmer, I don't even really know what he's got going on. Couldn't tell you, other than that he's kind of like quiet and looks kind of broody, but we know that he's nice. Um, and another thing is that the main guy, the swimmer guy, he was with one of the other divers. He was like long time dating or in a long term relationship with one of the other divers that our main girl was friends with, and then they broke up. And even though it was amicable, I just don't love the idea that that was one of her friend's exes and now she's getting with him. And I know that it's college and I know that it's college sports, which I don't know if that's like kind of like incestuous where they all just date each other. Like that's over my head. I don't really know. But I didn't love the premise of that. And also, like I said, I just couldn't get into the characters. I wasn't attached to anyone. I thought that it was kind of dry in the beginning. So I didn't get into it enough to tell you. I DNF'd it, like I said, for now. I think I'll get back into it at some point. And I do think that this is just such a beautiful book. I mean, look at that and look at the sprayed edges. I just, I'll have to get back into it at some point and I will let you know if my mind changes. But that was a surprise for me for sure. So, next question we have is favorite new author to you, or favorite new author or new to you author to clarify. Um, so back to this, I'll have to do a repeat. Laura Steven is one of them for sure. I loved the way she told that story. I think that her prose was beautiful. I think that that was a unique story. It is like Addie LaRue is what I've heard. I haven't read it, but I I doubt that it's exactly the same. This is still putting a twist on something that is pretty unique. And it was such a beautiful story. So she's definitely going to be on my list to see what she's got coming up next. And then another author for me is someone we've already talked about, Kylie Smith. I really liked, like I said, the way that she told that story. I want to see what else she comes up with. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think there might be another one in that series that she's got coming out. I will be on the lookout for that. If I'm wrong, just let it go. Don't tell me. But no, I think that there might be another one. And if not, I'm definitely reading whatever she comes up with next. So the next question, newest fictional crush. So let me get into it because this is a callback to what I was saying about Onyx Storm earlier. So, a callback to Onyx Storm with this question of newest fictional crush. I loved Eric Gray. What is his name? Eric Graycastle. Graycastle, such a weird name. But yeah, I loved getting more from Eric in Onyx Storm. So we find out his signet in this book, and it's a good one, y'all. Like, the fact that he had this alone and kept it a secret, he's so funny for that. Like, he's hilarious for that. And how he did that, the restraint that he had for that, love it. And another thing that happened, if you know, you know, in this book, I will never get over the fact that he was a troll towards Dane. And it has to do with languages, it has to do with interpretation, and it has to do with their traveling in the book. And I'll leave it at that. I just think it's so funny the way that he handled it. He let Dane think that he was the big dog in translating when really he had been fluent in all these languages all this time, and he was keeping his mouth closed about it and letting him make a fool of himself. I can't get over how funny that is, and it will never stop being funny to me. So yes, Eric for that. Eric for his problem solving with his signet. Um, Definitely someone to watch out for. Huge crush on him for just that alone. And I mean, he's a prince, so what's not to love there? Definitely a big fictional crush after that last book. Can't wait to see what happens next. Um, and then two of my favorite crushes, or another two crushes for me, would be Rowington Silver, and that's from Enchantra. Rowington and Enchantra is a crush for me because I already said he's got that caught lip ring. What's not to love? Also, Shadow Daddy. I didn't mention this before, but Rowan is a Shadow Daddy in this book. And so we love it, you know? Like I said, silly fun time. And I really liked his character. He was also very much the whole touch her and die trope. So Another good reason for him to be a fictional crush now. Lastly, Aiden Valentine. So I know I haven't mentioned First Time Caller yet, but I absolutely love this book. And this man right here, so cute, so sweet, and their romance is amazing. So this contemporary romance is up there. And this man also, he's like a radio host and everything, and he has this like nice velvety voice, and what's not to love about that? Plus the way that he treats the main character is so sweet. So he has to be on the top of fictional crushes for sure. All right, and newest favorite character. So this is exciting. I just finished reading the first book in Throne of Glass. So obviously one of my favorites has to be Selena, and I have literally, unfortunately, spoiled myself on some of that just by looking up fan art. So I unfortunately know Selena's secret that I shouldn't know at this point after only reading book one. But, anyways, favorite character, yes. She is sassy, she is strong, she is literally slaying. So we do love a stabby FMC, and the fact that she has such a strong backstory is amazing, even though it's only being like revealed to us a little at a time. So I cannot wait to get to Crown of Midnight and see where she goes from here. Her little assassin self, her little sassy self. So yeah, I'm really excited about that new character. And then also another favorite character, I already mentioned her, but Vivi in this book, that's her name. So Rowington and Vivi, I think I like didn't even mention their names when I was talking about this. But yeah, Vivi is the main character, and she is so funny, so cute, so sassy, and also it mentions that she's like a plump girl. She's not just this skinny little girl that we see as female characters in so many books and so many movies. So it is nice to see a plump representation here. And she was like described as being sexy and proud and confident, and I love that. So she's definitely one of my favorite new characters for sure. And next question is book that made you cry. So what book doesn't make me cry? We'll start there. But no, for sure. I already mentioned that Just Mercy made me cry. This is an amazing book. Like I said, you must read it. Real stories of real people that will bring you to tears and just make you really feel all the feels. Um, like I said, I think that should be required reading. Um, yeah, abolish the death penalty, and Brian Stevenson is amazing. The next book that made me cry is Happy Place. Where are you? Happy Place. I already mentioned that I cried during this book, so that's no surprise. Um, and one that I haven't mentioned yet is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I read that one on a plane as well on a trip, and I love Abby Jimenez's books, so I did really love the characters and I loved their chemistry, but there was so much of the plot that just felt like it was forced to fit the romance, whereas I don't know if a romance like that would really work in real life. Um, so yeah, that book did make me cry though, because essentially the deal is this girl meets this guy. She literally brings in her cat to see the vet, and the vet is this hot guy who ends up asking her out on a date, and she goes, and they have like the best time ever. So that part was really cute and really great, but it turns out that she was supposed to move the next day because her mom has been diagnosed with dementia. I can't remember. I think it was dementia. I don't, or maybe Alzheimer's. But her mom has been diagnosed and has lost her memory and lost her ability to really look after herself. So she's moving from Minnesota, I believe, all the way to California, and it can't become anything. So there's this whole struggle with long distance there, where we know that it can't become anything and they know that it can't become anything. And so they try to let it go. And she tells him to forget her. And they just keep doing this long distance thing, and there's these really big and really good reasons why both of them can't move states and be together again. And I just think in real life that that type of romance may not actually work out, or that maybe somebody's getting, like, in the end I really thought that maybe somebody was getting the short end of the stick. And I don't know, I just, it is very much a love letter to if they want to, they will, which is cute. And it did have really great characters. It did make me cry because just personal reasons as far as Alzheimer's or dementia is related with my own family. I just, it brought back those memories that really made me tear up and made me emotional. But I have also heard um, some critiques where they feel like those tears weren't well earned. They were just in, just tearjerker after tearjerker, because really these characters could not catch a break. I'll tell you that much. They could not catch a break. But in the end, it was, of course, not a spoiler, a happy ending. However, I do feel like somebody got the short end of the stick. So I'll leave it at that. That book was one that made me cry as far as what this category is. But was it perfect? Wasn't earned? I don't know. Next question is book that made you happy. So now we're gonna get into it. Finally, we're getting to first time caller. Like I said, this is basically a radio talk show in Baltimore. This guy, Aiden, he runs the radio talk show, and he basically is like not like a love doctor, but like people call in and ask for relationship advice. And a lot of times it has gotten to the point where the people who are calling in aren't aren't giving him good enough, conversations and good enough content. And people are just kind of calling in as a joke and things like that. So he's gotten really jaded and he's not really having very much fun with it anymore. But then at one point, one night, he gets a call from this little girl. I think she's like 8 to 10, somewhere in that range. And she's basically calling on behalf of her mom, who has been single as long as she can remember. Like, as long as she's been alive, her mom has been single. So that's a long time. um, and basically, she's just calling for dating advice for her mom because she wants her mom to be happy. And it's really cute. The characters in this book are amazing. So that's Aiden, and then this is our main girl. What is her name again? Lucy. Aiden and Lucy. And Lucy is a powerhouse. She's a badass. And she is actually a female mechanic. And she's a single mom to a wonderful daughter and a female mechanic. And like I said, she hasn't dated as long as her daughter's been alive, which is like 8 or so years. So yeah, she calls in asking for advice, and basically it goes viral, this conversation that he has about her mom, because her mom rushes in and is like, who is she talking to on the phone? This is my little girl, it's late. And so she freaks out about it and takes the phone, and then this whole conversation goes viral. So when it goes viral, of course, that's good money for the radio station, and the manager of the radio station is like, oh, we need to have her on here as a guest. So essentially, she comes as a guest and works for the radio station part time for a little while. And that's where we kind of see their romance heat up. And there's this forced proximity. There's him kind of trying to be a love guru to help her. And we really get a lot of fun dynamics here with this forced proximity. It's very sweet. It's very slow. I would say kind of a slow burning situation where I didn't feel like it was rushed. I feel like I really believe that these two characters had things that were attracted to each other besides just looks. I feel like they actually got to know each other during the time that they were kind of working on this radio station. It was funny, it was kicking your feet giggling, it was such a good time. So I definitely do recommend First Time Caller. This was certainly a book that made me happy. The next question here. Next question is Most beautiful cover. So, most beautiful cover. This one is tough. I do think that I already talked about how much I like the covers of Phantasma and Enchantra. Like, they're just so pretty. You can tell that they're gothic and it's very representative of what they are. They have like the flowers, the colors, the skulls. You can tell that it's like a gothic, darkish fantasy romantasy situation. I love them. I think that they are beautiful. Also, I already talked about how pretty I think this cover is. And an extra bonus one that I did not talk about because I have three different versions. I first read White Knights on my Kindle, and then I already showed you this tiny little one that I have. But lastly, because I was in Barnes and Noble and I'm a sucker, and the only version they had was the cloth-bound version, even though I knew that I wanted this one to annotate, and I am working on that now. I found first this cloth-bound version, which I thought was absolutely gorgeous. You can't really tell right now in this lighting, but this is gold on white on this cloth bound. Yeah, I absolutely loved that. It almost looks like these spider webs and everything, and it's just so cute. So this is my prized cloth bound version, my White Knights version, and or I mean my Penguin Classics version of White Knights, and I have it on Kindle. So clearly, we do really like this little classic. And one that I don't have physically, but I also loved the cover of it because it was very representative again of the book and just really pretty and colorful and cute, is actually It's Not Hysteria. Everything you need to know about your reproductive health, but we're never. Oh no, just everything you need to know about your reproductive health. That's by Karen Tang. And it's just really pretty. So I'll put the cover up here on the screen. But yeah, it's about like female reproductive health and just everything that you need to know. And I just feel like we do have a really big lack of education on health in this country in general. And then also, definitely on gynecological health. There's always something that I feel like women were learning about once we're diagnosed with it. And I think that that's so messed up. Like, I just think that the advancements that we have as women in healthcare is so far years and years behind men because people had kind of brushed it off for years and been like, oh, that's hysteria, and that's like what the book is about. It's not hysteria. Like she's just crazy. She's fine. She's not in that much pain. That's not a big deal. Oh, she's a woman. That's why. Oh, it's that time of the month. There's just so many caveats that have been used for years and years. And I just think that we could be so much further ahead if there wasn't all this stigma, all these caveats, all of this gender bias around it. So that is an amazing read that I highly recommend for a nonfiction as well. And it has a beautiful cover. So the last question that I actually have to answer today in this video is priority TBR by the end of the year. Okay, so I am a little bit behind, not too much, but a little bit behind on my reading goal. But one of my main goals is definitely to finish Throne of Glass this year. So right now, like I said, I'm on Crown of Midnight. I was going to start Crown of Midnight right after Throne of Glass, but I didn't because I had some books come in on Libby, just from my library, so I needed to make those priority and grab that while I could. So I'm still finishing up an audiobook from Libby and also a Kindle book. So I'm going to finish up those two and then get back into Crown of Midnight. I liked Throne of Glass so far, but it is kind of slow, and I knew that it would be because let's be honest, we all know that SJM was literally in her teens when she started this. So I'm not too put out by that. I know that it's going to get better. I know that it's going to get better. So I'm really excited about that. It was really slow for me and it was kind of like a chore, but I'm excited for Crown of Midnight and to see how it goes. So my reading order, just so everybody knows. I know everybody's different. I am reading Throne of Glass. I did not start with Assassin's Blade, even though I know there's a lot of controversy. A lot of people were telling me, oh, you should have. But I was told by a good friend that I should really start just with Throne of Glass, go to Crown of Midnight, and then I have heard that you should maybe read Assassin's Blade third, but I was told that for maximum emotional impact, I should read it fourth. So that is what I'm gonna do is read it fourth. I'm not gonna do the tandem read because I just feel like that's too much. I'm also doing it on my Kindle, so I don't feel like switching and toggling back between the two. Um, so yeah, that's gonna be my reading order, and I'm really excited for that this year. I do hope to finish it because it's 8 books, and it's like I put this off reading this for so long. I can't even tell you. Like, but I'm here, I'm doing it, I'm excited, and I know it's gonna be great. So I'm excited to finish that this year. And then another one that I have, where are you? Archer's Voice. This is another on my priority TBR, mainly because my mom lent this to me, and I'm trying to make my physical TBR priority. So this is one of them. And also, One Golden Summer, I already talked about. That's another physical priority TBR. And another one that I haven't talked about yet, but also has a beautiful cover, so I could have easily mentioned this one. It's got sprayed edges and a beautiful cover. Typewriter, Flames, love it. But yes, Blood Over Brighthaven, I have heard so many good things about, and I do want to make this a priority TBR read this year. Um, yeah, I think that's about it. Oh my gosh, I have one more priority TBR and a physical one as well. I'm just ruining my shelves today. But Red Rising, another priority series that I want to read. I don't know exactly when I'll get to this, but I am excited to at least start this series this year. I've heard also a lot of good things about this, and I really want to get into this series. Actually, my boyfriend's one of his best friends read it and recommended it to me. So I'm really excited to kind of get into that. And I have heard a lot of good things about it that's really fast paced. So yeah, another author, Pierce Brown, I haven't read anything by him, so I'm really excited to try and to get into everything he's got in this world. So that is it actually for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for coming back to Books and Tea with Macy, or if this is your first time here, welcome. I've had so much fun filming this video. I hope that you give it a like and subscribe if you're into it. I promise to try to do better. Obviously, you can look back at my videos. It's been a long time since I've posted. I promise to try to do better about that. I have been reading as this video suggests. I just haven't prioritized time to sit down and talk about it, and I'm going to get better about that in the second half of this year. So stick around, subscribe, like this, and I will see you next time on Books and Tea with Macy. Thank you.